listening to Zappa music live, I think, is a good way to crack that shell, because it's when you try and get someone to listen to, if you recommend Zappa music, there's no guarantee they're going to listen to what you recommend or actually do what you recommend. But when you bring someone to a concert, they're kind of stuck. They have to sit there. It's in their best interest to absorb the music. Otherwise, they're gonna have a bad time. And that's how I got into it, because I couldn't stand Frank Zappa's music for years. Like outside of a handful of songs, like I loved Apostrophe when I was a kid, like Yellow Snow and Cosmic Debris. Like those songs are great. And I dug like Pajama People off of One Size Fits All. And I dug. I think I always liked Inca Roads, but other than like the handful of songs, I thought his music sounded overbearing and goofy. It always sounded like it was music made for a circus for crazy people, and that was the Ruth Underwood stuff that did that for me. I always found the xylophone belong someplace else. I came around. It was Les Claypool that got me into xylophone. Alive, I saw Les Claypool live, and there was a xylophone solo, and I was like, I get it now. I had to hear it with music I liked, and then I was going to see Dream Theater one time in Toronto, and Dweezil was opening, and that's when Terry Bozzio was there, Steve Vai, Napoleon Murphy Brock. Like, if you're going to see Dweezil, that's when you're going to see him.
Wow.
And I had no interest in seeing him, but because it was free and they're opening for Dream Theater, I thought, well, I'm going. And the tickets. There's this pizza place in Canada called Pizza, which is one of the worst pizza chains in the whole continent, probably. But I swear they call themselves Pizza because they're trying to convince you it's pizza. So
it really is pizza.
Yeah. And their phone number always ends with a 1111, no matter where you are in the city. Like I don't know if they pay extra for it, but that's like their slogan, right? Like 1111 is their slogan. So wherever town you're in, you just dial like the extension plus 111111. If there's a pizza in town, you're gonna get pizza. So this one summer, they bought a whole section inside this theater in Toronto called the Molson Amphitheater, it's a beautiful outdoor amphitheater right on Lake Ontario, overlooking the lake. Amazing, one of the best venues I've ever been to, and I've been there many, many times. But they bought a whole section like in the middle near the back, like something like 200 seats. And if you bought the tickets from Pizza, they were $11.11. No matter what the concert was, it could be like so. So I had friends that bought tickets elsewhere that paid like $90, and some of them had worse seats than I had, and I got mine for $11.11. So because they were so cheap, I bought tickets for my mom, my dad, like everybody, all my close friends that wanted to go. I just bought like 10 tickets for everybody. And so I called my parents and said, hey, you should come see Dream Theater with us. Like, I've been trying to get my parents into Dream Theater, and they couldn't stand it. I think my dad said he said it sounded too much like heavy metal Styx, which he's right. That's kind of what they sound like. But I don't know what the problem with Styx is, because I think Styx is pretty good. So I had to tell them, I said, look, Dweezil Zappa's opening for them. They're going to play a whole Zappa set. And then both my parents were like, well, then for sure, we'll go. And so we went, and we got there early because I didn't want my parents to miss the Zappa show. And it was like 2 songs in, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. I was like, oh my God, I feel like such a fool. Like I like all this music I thought sounded goofy and immature, all kind of landed. It hit me at my heart, and I was like crying. I was so overwhelmed. And they're playing great songs. Like they played Bobby Brown Goes Down.
Yeah.
And I remember Mike Portnoy came out, the drummer from Dream Theater. That's back before he left the band the first time there. It was his last tour, actually, I think. The last time he was in Toronto before they broke up. And it was like him coming out and singing the song and talking about how much he loves Frank Zappa. And then Portnoy, he's got several Zappa tattoos I never knew about. Like he has the mustache on the back of his calf.
All right.
And yeah, so seeing like one of my favorite drummers talking about how like Frank Zappa's music is so far superior to anything Dream Theater's done. And so it took like that delivery and it's probably Mike Portnoy that decided they should open for them, right? Because he's going like, we have a whole legion of fans that need to listen to more Zappa. And it worked.
Yeah.
And I've gone to see Dweezil probably 5 times since then now. I went from owning 0 Frank Zappa records to owning probably 70 of them now. I probably own about 30 or 40 records and then CDs and whatnot, and a lot of them are bad. But
yeah, it's a lot. Like, there are a lot of very dodgy Zappa albums. Yeah, I've seen Dweezil twice, and certainly the first time I saw him, I was with a friend who, the same as the previous friend, wasn't really into Zappa, and the only reason he came along to the gig was that his house was where he lives is only 100 yards away from the gig, and I said, do you want to come? And he, oh, okay, I'll come. And he's one of those guys that goes to things, just on kind of on the off chance that he might like it. And we're making our way out of the theatre afterwards, and Colin said to me, he said, Is that all Frank's music? And I said, yeah. And he says, was Frank that good? And I said, that's a complex question. I said, well, what Frank did, Frank never played, well, very seldom played the songs live the way that they were recorded on the album, because usually it was a different band, and they wouldn't always be able to replicate what the previous band did, and Frank wouldn't want them to anyway. They had their own style. I said, but yeah, Frank's bands played all that, obviously, because that's what it is. But I think the trick that Dweezil's got, which I don't think there's any option for him really, is he authentically presents the music the way it was recorded, as near as damn it. So you can have no complaints about what you're hearing. And then during the solos, he'll extemporize a little bit and deviate from what Frank played to put his own expression in. But he always shows you first, yeah, I know every note of this solo, don't worry. Here it is. Now I'm going to do my little bit. here's what I do, which I think is great, And I've seen him live twice, and I've watched just about every concert on YouTube, of which there are quite a few. He was obviously at one point quite interested in getting the band's music out there from whoever would film it. So there's radio stations and TV stations have filmed the various iterations of the Dweezil Zappa thing, but he hasn't done anything for a couple of years. Is that right? When was the last sort of Zappa Plays Zappa tour?
He did some, like, for the 50th anniversary of Freak Out, he did a bunch of tours. I think that's about it. I don't think anything's really happened since.
50th anniversary. When was that? Was that wasn't 2016, was it?
Well, I guess it'll be 2016, 2017, but the tour went on, I think, up until the pandemic, pretty much.
Right.
I think.
Right.
And but I know he's lost a lot of steam because the Family Trust has tried to take every ounce of credibility out of it, right? Because they don't want him to use the name Zappa. They don't want him to advertise it as being music of Frank Zappa. They don't want him selling merch because they want 100% of the merch profits and all this stuff. So he's stopped with the whole Zappa Plays Zappa for the most part because he can't make money doing it. Because they've taken his right to make money, kind of, which sucks.
Yeah. Well, I know that was the case while Gail was still alive. Is that still the case? Have you got any recent news about that?
I heard an interview since Gail passed away. I can't remember if it was with Mark Maron or what.
Yeah, I heard that one. That was a while ago, though.
Yeah, there was one where they were talking, like he had lightened up a bit about his anger towards the family members, but as far as I understand, Ahmet is really trying to clamp down because he wants to profit as much off the Zappa Family Band, and he's afraid that people rather go see Dweezil than see the Zappa Family Band, and that's what I understood in an interview I saw. But I don't know how much truth there is to that because there's two siblings that are griping over something. So
yeah. I don't know.
Dweezil could be the problem. Who knows?
It could be, but from the outside, just on the basic premise of what we see, I'm with Dweezil. I think
absolutely.
Ahmet should be on side with him and forget the hologram tour, which I thought was. I know they didn't want it filmed, and I understand why, because the hologram doesn't come across, and when you film it, it just doesn't look good, and it would look better if you're there.
It doesn't improvise either, so you don't want to have like the one version out there, right? Because it's the same show.
You've seen it. You don't need to go.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I had tickets for the show. They were coming to Ontario, opening for King Crimson. It was going to be Zappa Family Band, then King Crimson. It was the last time King Crimson was ever going to come to Canada, and they got canceled because of the pandemic. And that was
right.
That's why I decided to move from Ontario. I said, if I can't see Zappa and fucking King Crimson, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go live in the middle of nowhere.
It was the final straw. Yeah, I could have gone to see it. They played in Edinburgh, but on principle I didn't, because I thought it was just such a terrible idea. And they were synchronized to the light show, so the band was playing to a click. And it was from what I saw, and it was, oh no, this is not good. I mean, I know it's Zappa alumni and all that, but they've got to make a living, so they're getting paid. And I don't judge them for doing it, but I do judge Ahmet. And Ahmet comes out at one point and sings doesn't sing it, he murders one of the songs, prancing about at the front of the stage like a loon. You know, he seems to have no understanding of what his father's music was about. You know, he just seems to go for the silly and the puerile side of it, which was there, the sort of Dadaism and all of that. But the visuals of that that presentation that they did with the hologram, I thought were completely inappropriate. I understand that if you're tripping or if you're stoned, those visuals might be great, you know. But if you actually want to appreciate the music for what it is, those visuals just, for me, would have been horrendous. That would have been like being in a torture chamber for me.